Hi everyone. So I have not been here for a while, and one of the main reasons is the fact that I have not read much this year. I was supposed to read 30 books in 2018 and I read 8. And it's not a huge problem, and I don't want to make a big deal out of it because that's not really the point of reading in the first place. But I just want to make sure that I really am getting through the books that I own, because I own quite a lot and about half of them I have not read. So it's kind of a recent goal of mine to read the rest of the books that I have to read until the end of the year. So I have to read incredibly quickly in the next 2 months in order to achieve that. And I'm not saying that I will definitely do it, but I will try it, and I do definitely think that I have time. So that means quite a bit, and I already picked out the books that I want to read by the end of the year. So I think they're 22. And I picked quite a selection because I wanted to read different formats. I also want to give you an update on what I have been reading these last few days. Actually, let me start by that book because I feel like that's a bit more fresh in my mind. I've been reading The Hate You Give, and it's only been like 3 days and I'm almost done. Not almost done, but like I'm 2/3 of the way or so. Let me tell you something. I get it. I get the appeal. And let me tell you something. I definitely am understanding more clearly the appeal of YA and why it's just so easy for so many people here on BookTube to read so many books so fast. Because this just gives itself, the style in which it's written and the pace of the book, of the storyline is so, it's almost like it's meant for someone to never close the book and just kind of like, oh, okay, I can take a break right now. This is definitely something that I can put in favor of it, that it's so full of conflict all the time. And so even though there's not a lot of room, I think, for introspection, at least in this particular book, I definitely think there's a lot of depth in it. And I will elaborate on that when I do a proper review for this book, which I will do even though it's probably not even that relevant these days, because this came out like, I think, already 2 years ago. But the theme itself, the subject, is relevant regardless, so I think I am somewhat updated in my reading habits, which is still a change from what was the case the last year, because one of my resolutions for reading this year was that I should read books that are recent and that were published this year, although obviously I have not read any book that was published in 2018, but I have read Little Fires Everywhere, which I think came out in 2017, and this one I think also came out in that year. In any case, they're very recent, and I'm glad that I am making that change. So anyways, like I said, I'm not going to review this right now. I'm going to do it obviously when I'm done reading it. But I definitely get it. It's different. The reading experience of this book is different from literary fiction and things like classics and stuff like that. It's really it wants to be very descriptive in writing, so it wants to be very crystal clear and very, sometimes quite blatant and blunt about everything. That characteristic, it can have pros and cons, but I am enjoying reading this book, although in some aspects of it I do have mixed feelings about it, but I do feel emotionally invested in this book. Now let me talk about the books that I said I would read this year. One of them I mentioned a long time ago, Night Film by Marisha Peso. I am still intrigued by it, but it definitely seems like it's going to be a bit harder to get through. So I do hope, I feel like this might be my doom for this whole challenge that I put on myself of these last few months of the year. And I also have Do I Enjoy Stream of Electric Sheep? I think yeah, the inspiration for Blade Runner. I do know a little bit about this and I do want to read this. This author I have heard a lot of really positive things about. Another book is Old Man's War. This is another science fiction book, and it is, I don't know if it is considered a classic. I don't really know what year it's from, but it is a best-selling novel, and that's another thing that I was a little wary about. In my whole in which I was talking about buying books that are out of my comfort zone, I said I basically don't tend to trust bestsellers and YA. So, you know, obviously there's always going to be exceptions. There can be great books that are bestsellers and also YA. And I think can be easily proven wrong about my assumptions and stuff like that. And this is Poems of the Great War. So it's about World War One. I bought this a very long time ago, more as a souvenir than anything else. But this is a collection of poetry about World War One, and it does have some authors listed on the back. I'm just really intrigued by the, I guess, idea itself of reading a collection of poetry, especially in English, because I tend to read poetry in Spanish and I do tend to enjoy it a lot. So, but I do think it might be a different experience in a second language. So I also have this classic Spanish poem, like a poem story. Again, I forgot the proper name for it, but Poema del Mío Cid is a pretty old classic. I don't really know what century it is really from, but it's one of those really long poems that tell a story. And I have the feeling that I might be incredibly bored by this book, but I also might end up liking it a lot, maybe. And you know, this is not really a TBR that I'm really focused on every particular book. I think I'm just gonna allow myself to change a book for another if I feel like if I feel like I'm causing myself to go through a reading slump, I might just pick another book and read that one instead. Because if I'm not really entertained at all by a book, I might finish it actually, but I will just find it very slow and irritating. Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. Okay. This, I also read Fahrenheit 451 by him. I didn't really love it so much, but I want to give the guy another chance because he's very respected. This is a collection of short stories by Kate Chopin, and I have read not The Awakening, but The Story of an Hour by this author, and I really enjoyed it, so I am interested in that one. This is The Master and Margarita, a Russian novel, I do believe, and this really feels like it's going to be something that is going to be unlike anything else I've read before, so I am really intrigued. Now, I have not read anything by Chuck Palahniuk. Pretty sure that is Palahniuk. Yeah. And again, a bestseller. This could be really good. The novel Choke. A lot of his novels are very, very famous. I also have one called Pygmy, which apparently it's not very good. But you know, so, and for that reason I picked this one instead of that one for this challenge for myself for this TBR. I have some more YA. I have Illuminae by Anna Karenina, Amy Kaufman, and Jay Kristoff. This I am actually pretty interested in it. I don't know what to expect from it, but except for the fact that it might be a little bit boring. I tend to feel that way about books that are really thick like this, but because I had a bad experience with Dracula. But I know that this is one of those that have an interesting format, So it might just be that. Now there's also The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I know that a lot of people love this book here on BookTube. And as I also try to pick, different genres for my YA books, because fantasy, science fiction with Illuminae, and The Hate You Give is also contemporary. So there's that. And another one of the TBR is Trial by Franz Kafka. I have read the Metamorphosis and read an audiobook for, what was it, in the Penal Colony. I am interested in the author a lot. I really like his style. Okay, so this is the last bunch, I swear. This is Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke, a science fiction book. I was interested in it mainly because the title is it's also the title of an Iron Maiden song, so there is that. Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse 5. This edition is really ugly, and as you can see, I actually started reading it already, but I was finding it kind of strange to read and not incredibly easy to understand, so I paused it. And I also have Octavia E. Butler's Kindred. This is a science fiction novel that is, I don't think it's very recent. I don't know how recent it is, but it is listed as both science fiction and African American literature, so this should be something that I like, or I guess it should be up my alley, I don't know. The Call of the Wild and White Fang by Jack London. My dad gifted me this book and I am interested in it. I do believe it is an English classic, and this is non-fiction, the Chomsky-Foucault debate on human nature, that I am very interested in it since I do study sociology. And The Plague by Albert Camus, or Albert Camus. I have not started reading this, but I have read The Stranger, which most people who read classics have read that one, and I really enjoyed it, so I am interested in this one as well. Now, I did start reading this one, but I just didn't find it very entertaining, at least not at the beginning. The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. It seems like it's going to get interesting, but I don't seem to be very patient for that moment in which it finally gets interesting. So that seems to be also a problem with my reading habits, I guess. Now we're down to the last two. This is Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. A lot of people have read this. I've heard but a couple of negative or mixed reviews of this book that I'm wary of, but I am mostly hopeful about liking this. It is a graphic novel, and as most people know, right? This is The Road by Cormac McCarthy, and this is definitely one of the ones that I am the most interested in because it seems to be my style of book, and I have picked at it a little bit, and the writing style seems very intriguing. So I really can't wait for this one in particular, to be honest with you. So I hope you guys were entertained by this video, and yeah, I know it had been a while since I didn't upload anything, but that's because, again, I had not been reading that much, and I'm now very recently starting to get into reading every day. Obviously, this is very ambitious, and I'm not necessarily saying that I will do it, but I also want to push myself to do something that I know that I physically can do. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see each other in the next one. Bye!